Welcome to Around the House Northwest, presented by PGE and Oregon Kind of Energy.
Welcome in to another edition of Around the House Northwest here on Fox 12 Plus. I'm Eric G. Coming up on today's show, I'll chat with Brian Thomas about GenTent and show you how to install one on my own home generator. I'll also talk with Christian Reed about the latest tools from Recon and get some advice on maintenance from General Tree Service. But first, we always kick off the show with our Perform Like a Pro segment. You know, sinks and toilets have an angle stop valve that shuts off the water when the fixtures need repair work, but those valves wear out over time. Here's how to replace them without calling the plumber.
Now it's time for Perform Like a Pro.
All right, guys, today we're going to talk about how to change out one of these angle stop valves. What's an angle stop valve? That is that valve that's down next to your toilet or under your sink that you can turn the water off so you don't have to turn the water off to the entire house. Now, these things typically last about 10 years, and as they start to degrade, you have problems. You might find a little puddle under the sink, or you go to shut it off and it won't. So we're going to talk about how to change these out and repair them once and for all. That way you're good. But our first thing we have to do is run outside and turn off the water, because this has constant water pressure behind it, and you're going to cause a flood if you take it off the wall now. So let's go out and shut off that water. All right, guys, your water meter is going to be usually by the street. It's going to look like this right here. Now, in this hot mess is this turn off right here. And this is what we use our key with to turn the water off. And now my water is off. And that's how you do it. Now, let's go swap out those valves. All right, guys, now that the water's turned off, it's an important part. We're gonna figure out what kind of pipe we're working with. In here, I have copper, so we know what that is. Now, if you've got this yellow stuff, the CPVC, be careful. This stuff is super brittle, and it might be time to bring in the pro for that, because this stuff can break, and it breaks back into the wall. Now you have a drywall repair, and you can chase this for a while. So just know what you're working with before you start. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do over here is take this hose off, our supply line. It's a good time to change these out as well. Put that on your parts list while you're doing it. I like the braided lines, and so these last a lot longer than just those white ones. Those end up breaking down and can cause a leak as well. So toss those out and go braided. So next thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna take this off. I'm gonna show you the two different types, because we have a threaded connection and a compression connection on these. And those are the two main types, so let's talk about that. If you've only got pliers, these will work. However, these teeth that we see right here can be really brutal on the finish. My preference, though, is to go ahead and use wrenches. Now, if you've got a good set of wrenches, this works well. You can also use an adjustable wrench like this, but these tend to be a little more loose, and so you could fight it a little bit more. Plus, as you can see, they're bulky. So we'll go ahead and go with a couple wrenches. Now, here's the weird part. Depending on how old this is, if you got some newer parts, it could be a mixture of the SAE and the metric wrenches, so you're gonna have to dig through the toolbox and see what fits. So in this one right here, I've got a 22 and a 1-inch. Kind of crazy how that works. So we're just gonna loosen this up here and take this off. There's our threaded connection. That could be pipe. It could be a couple different things that you've got right there, but it's going to be a threaded one. Now let's talk about why these things fail, because many times you go to turn off the faucet and you've got that and the water keeps going, and so you're trying to change out that faucet or repair it, and you just keep having water coming. Let's take this apart and I'll show you. So you're going to have to put a wrench on this. When you come into the inside of this, there is a seat where it seals up right here. And then we have this rubber gasket. This piece of rubber right here is the offender. And what I've noticed is the more chlorine and other chemicals that are in your drinking water, this tends to dry out even more. So it could last a lot less. Now this gets hard. If you look right here, this one here is just as hard as the metal around it. So there's no way that's gonna seal correctly, and I can see where it's about ready to come apart. If I take a new one apart, like I have right here, and again, you have to use wrenches. It doesn't take much to get them apart. You can see how good that rubber washer is compared to this old one that's completely hardened. It's like it's, you know, some kind of fossil over there. It's done. Now here's the bad part. I wish these were repairable. Stuff in the 50s and 60s, sometimes you have a screw right here where you can replace that washer. But really, the more they make these, the more they make them so they're not repairable, and you just have to replace the whole one. The next thing I want to do right here is, since this is threaded, we're either going to use a Teflon tape or one of these pipe dopes like this. And this is Teflon here. I like this personally a little bit better than tape, only because the tape can get hung up. If you have a piece that comes loose and you're not careful, it can get up into the faucet or aerator and cause more of a problem. So I prefer this pipe dope type material right here. It works really well. And this stuff here is rated for water and gas. So the next thing we're going to do here, put that off on my rag, is I'm going to come in and start this, get this started on here so we don't cross the threads. I'm going to get it hand tight. And we're going to go back to these wrenches right here. Now I'm going to start trying to get it oriented in the direction. So for a sink or something like that, I wanted that to be going straight up like that. Now the other side, we had this compression valve right here that we were talking about. It's going to come with this ring, and the ferrule like here is how it shows up in the package. And what that does is that actually just grabs around the diameter of that as you tighten it up. Well, that one's usually stuck on there when it's been on there for a long time and you're not going to get it off there. But this is a standard thread, so that's okay. So you can take your old one off, and this goes back on here like it was already stuck on there. And then you're just going to take that one, just kind of like how that one is. You're going to make sure that you get that as far back as you can. And then we're going to tighten that up. And then we're going to get this as tight as we can with this, because as we tighten this up right here, that's what compresses that ring and make sure we get that. Almost all the time these days, you're going to be using some kind of flex line. It's just more durable that way. And that way, you don't have to worry about cutting, bending, and getting that going. Now that is how you change out an angle stop. So the next time you're doing that sink project, now you know how to change it, and that'll save you a bunch of money when it comes to hiring a plumber.